Stop it.
Hey, you
What
added
is
the world.
Oh my God. I think that's the wrong intro. That's the thanks for watching. Oh my God. I've got to do some clipping.
Oh well.
Anyway, it's pretty choppy for me. I don't know what's going on with our internet this morning.
You sound fine right now.
Yeah, normally it's not a problem, but this morning it is. But anyway, so I suppose I should link this video in the description again. This is Eric Hernandez, and let me see here if I can get it out. Oh, where are we? Yeah, things are really screwed up for me this morning, so this is going to be really bad. Sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. This thing. This is like Eric Hernandez and Tom. Tom Jump, and this is from May 19th, I think. Something like that. 2019. So this is a pretty old video. So
I think didn't Matt Dillahunty do a debate with Eric Hernandez at one point?
Oh my God, that would be fun to watch too, because
let me do a little research on that real quick.
Okay. Yep. Let's see. So I want to put that video in there.
I have not seen yet the video between him and T Jump.
Oh yeah. Well,
no, so I'll have to watch it.
There's a little bit of it here. Let's see. This is. Well, I can go ahead and play a little bit. You want me to do that?
If you got, yeah. If you want to grab a piece.
Just first make a differentiation between reasons perhaps one comes to believe, or reasons that should justify reasons to believe in God. I think reasons that would justify belief in God would be things like the argument from contingency, the kalam, the moral argument from evil. And then there are also arguments that I would use against atheism, which
this is just kind of his preliminary stuff. Well,
I would take to be the belief that God does not exist, and that would be like the evolutionary argument against nationalism that Evan Plantinga came up with, closely tied to the argument from reason, the existence of consciousness, free will, the existence of the soul, and the resurrection.
Okay, that's kind of his intro. But I think he gets
showing all his cards, letting us know he's got nothing. Anybody who's not familiar with all those issues, they might say, that sounds like it could be credible. I can't wait to find out what that is. But anybody that's been around long enough to know how those issues play out, they now know that he's got nothing to offer this debate.
Yep. Okay, so I think he starts with the epistemology thing here.
So how do you know that you're determined to believe it for those reasons? How do you know that it's those reasons that cause you to believe it? Because if you're determined, it's factors prior to yourself and beyond your control that you're determined to believe it, irrelevant of what you're determined to think those reasons are for.
What? So he's making a case that if determinism and physicalism are true, then you have no foundation to believe what you believe, because your beliefs were determined, right? So that's what he's saying. And Tom points out that he is confusing epistemology with metaphysics over and over again, and he keeps insisting that he's not, but he does over and over and over. I wonder where the beginning of this is. Let's see. Maybe we can play the whole thing from the beginning. Arguments against atheism. Okay, we can definitely be a little more clear what I mean. Is your belief reasonable? Oh, hang on a second. What you're determined to believe. So it's right around 2 minutes, I think.
No, that's incorrect. The rationality to agree to that?
Yes, and I can't help but ask because you said you don't believe in free will. If you really came to believe that,
No, I did not freely come to believe that. I was determined to believe that.
why should I believe what you're determined to believe?
Why would my determining make it more or less true? It's
Right,
somewhat
yeah.
relevant. Like if I'm determined to believe that 2 + 2 = 4, the fact that I'm determined to believe it doesn't make it any more or less true.
Right, but it gives you no justification for believing it's true.
No, the fact that I'm determined to believe it makes it independent from my justification. Justification doesn't come from the fact that I'm determined to believe it. They're two
Right.
separate things.
But it undercuts your justification.
No, it has two separate things, unrelated in every way.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing that they're unrelated, but I'm saying the fact that you're determined to believe something undercuts your reason for believing it, rather undercuts your rationality for believing it.
No, that's incorrect. The rationality to believe something is independent of whether or not you're determined to believe something.
Right, but the fact that you're determined to believe it undercuts the rationality of it. It would be like for example, let's say
He keeps saying it over and over again. You know, it's like,
Right.
and here, okay, his claim about determinism is kind of a metaphysical claim. So determinism is a metaphysical claim. And then he's confusing that with epistemic justification of, why Tom believes 2 + 2 = 4. And he goes on, I think, to talk about the magic 8 ball here.
I get a magic 8 ball, and I ask whether or not it's going to rain, and it says yes. My reason for believing it's going to rain based on the 8 ball is undercut by the fact that it's just a mechanism designed for entertainment, not at conveying truth. So if that's what you're
Okay. So what do you think of that, gentlemen?
I'm glad he used that example because it exposes the bullshittery of his argument, and he
Right.
leaves himself completely wide open to T-Jump. Like I can't wait to see T-Jump all over that in a moment.
He does, but Hernandez is just totally unfazed. He's totally unfazed.
brain is and does, and it's determined to believe certain things, then your brain would be like a glorified magic 8 ball.
Well, no, that's demonstrably false. So like if I said, I believe 2 + 2 = or I'm determined to believe that 2 + 2 = 4, because when I take 2 objects and 2 other objects and put them together, I get 4 objects. I'm determined to believe that because of the reason that I add these together, I get 4. So I'm still determined to believe it, but the justification is still there.
Actually, no, it's not because that's not the reason you believe it. You believe it because you're determined. And then you're determined to believe you believe it for those reasons, which is something you're equally determined to believe.
Right, you're determined to believe it because of the reasons. So the reasons exist independent of the determination.
How
So
would you know?
doesn't make
I'm sorry.
saying doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't get it.
I agree. It doesn't make sense that there's no free will. So how do you know that you're determined to believe it for those reasons? How do you know that it's those reasons that cause you to believe it? Because if you're determined, it's factors prior to yourself and beyond your control that you're determined to believe it, irrelevant of what the determined.
Okay. So he's comparing determinism, the brain being determined, with a magic 8 ball. So it's just a glorified machine, right? And it is kind of a machine, and it's causal. But the thing is, your justification is within yourself, within your mind, right? That's where you justify things.
Yeah, and I think determinism isn't necessary. I mean, it doesn't really entail randomness. And that's all a magic 8 ball is, making decisions by random. It's like the I Chi method, or is it I Ching? I think it's called I Ching. Where you pull out sticks and interpret them. That's just a random process. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that the reasons that you believe things, okay, are memory. Okay, it is one big reason. Your memory and your interacting with the universe over the course of your lifetime. You have built up an epistemic justification for believing that your room is, something that you can walk across, that your coffee is something that you can drink, that food is something that you can eat. All of these things are basically, they're determined, which has nothing to do. It doesn't mean that you don't have reasons for believing these things. Okay. Reasons are when you believe something and you stop, and then you come up with a cognitive model that investigates the reasons for your belief, right? And that's what Christians never actually do. But, I have good reason to believe that my room is X number of feet across and I can walk across it because I can get up at any time and investigate that over again, or I can measure it, or I can do a number of other acts of body and mind in order to confirm and justify my beliefs. And then he goes on a little bit later and he starts saying, oh, well, you can't be certain, right? And it's like, who cares? If you can be certain, justification doesn't require certainty. So
certainty doesn't prove or disprove anything anyways. Certainty is a feeling.
Certainty is a religious idea, I think, basically. It's kind of a super epistemology where, you can be absolutely certain and everything's grounded and founded. That's pretty much religious thinking in general. So these guys apply, like he's applying, he's treating determinism as if it's a God that creates this causal network and makes you believe in something, right? Where it is the actual network that makes you believe in something. So it's the chain of causation that justifies your belief. It's not some outside source. So at one point, he just said, that would mean that your beliefs are causes outside of yourself that you have no control over. No, you have control over your beliefs, right? You can drag them out of the cabinet. You can look at them one at a time and you can remember what your reasons were. And then you can go out and do experiments and investigate those reasons, or, get further knowledge about those reasons and therefore re-justify your belief. But he sees it as being something like a God. He's treating determinism exactly the same way he treats God, that it would be the foundation of Tom's belief, something outside of himself that he has no control over. Is that clear?
I understand the point you're making. It's probably going to be lost on Hernandez. But, certainty doesn't mean shit to me, and it shouldn't mean shit to anybody, right? Certainties, if anything, certainty is a warning. Certainty is like troubling. If you have 100% certainty of something, you should worry. You should question yourself.
You should worry, right? You may be crazy.
It is not a moral virtue to be certain about something, nor does it count as an argument or evidence that you're certain of something.
Hi, Bree.
It's worthless.
And hi, Wooly Ignorant. John Hudson. I have not seen. Have we seen John before? I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so should I play a little more? You want more? Oh, this is rich stuff.
Of irrelevant of what you're determined to think those reasons are for.
What?
Where did I lose you?
So I am a determinist, so I believe there is no free will. Everything is determined, but it's determined by reasons. So if you're going, it's not just arbitrary. It's not random. It's like the reason I believe certain things, the reason I'm determined to believe certain things is because those things are justified by reasons, and those reasons compel me, because of how my brain works, to believe that determined thing. So I don't have an option. I can't stop believing that 2 + 2 = 4 because that is determined by the reasons I use to get to that conclusion. So all of the things I believe, they are determined because of the reasons that I believe them.
So, okay, right. And I'm asking, how do you know that you're determined for those reasons? Because could it not, let's just
okay, there again, that you're determined for those reasons because you can do self-reflection. You can dig out the source of your belief, right? Because for any belief we have a whole network of knowledge that went into that. Like
that's the problem. Hernandez lacks the ability for self-reflection. He can't trace his own inner mechanisms. He can't do personal inventory about what's going on in his own head. And so it's such an alien concept to him that he doesn't understand when an atheist is explaining the process of reviewing the history of your own thoughts. He's like, nobody can do that. Like, yeah, we fucking can. How can you not?
For him, everything is sourced to God, his foundation, right? So So if he believes something, he can just say, "Oh, I believe this because Yahweh told me," or
He can say that,
yeah,
but it's not true.
I just had faith and the answer came to me and I knew it was from God because I read the Bible and blah, blah, blah. So he's the one that has the ungrounded belief because he's picking something like God, which is just another word like determinism, right? And determinism is not what we rely on for our beliefs. Determinism is something we believe along with a lot of other beliefs, right? It's not the source of everything. There's not something outside of ourselves that made us believe what we believe. Well, there is the world, reality. Reality is why we believe what we believe. And then, of course, the philosophy or the metaphysician is going to say, oh, the senses are fallible, and we could be a brain and a vat, and we could Descartes' demon, and we could be this and could be that. And they come up with and then they start dragging in really bad metaphysics, none of which, as Tom points out a little later, is justified in itself. Brain in a vat is not justified. Fucking solipsism is not justified. None of these metaphysical bullshit claims are justified. But you've heard about fallibility of the senses, right? Philosophers love that one. That was a question I asked.
Sure.
So
I've heard of it.
I mean, it's real common. Everybody's, oh, fallibility of the senses. So everybody thinks, oh, the senses are fallible. Well, if the senses were fallible, there would be no mammal alive on the earth today. The senses work just exactly the way they're supposed to. And they tell you basically what your relationship to reality is. And it is a relationship. It isn't just us observing noumena or some, fuzzy, like true reality outside. That's not what we're doing. We're having a relationship with reality. And our epistemic foundation is in that. It's in reality. It's because we imbibe the same nomological rules or nomological laws all of the time in reality. That's how you learn to play basketball. Every time you bounce the basketball, it behaves the same way as it did the last time on varying, of course, across surfaces, but on the same surface, it will behave the same way. And you hit it once and it comes up and you hit it again and it comes up and you hit it again and you dribble, right? So everything in reality is like that. It teaches you its rules, basically. The relationship that you are having with reality is how your senses basically give you your perspective on reality. And there's nothing fallible about that at all. Every now and then we'll look at something and say, oh no, that's something else, right? But that doesn't happen all that fucking often. Most of the time, our senses are working just perfectly, not fallible. Very, very solid, 99.9% right all the time. If it wasn't, we would be dead. What do you think of that little diatribe?
That sounds great. I'm glad to hear so much passion today coming from you, Mike. You're like fully engaged with this. You're like bringing it to the masses, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, these are the things I talk about when I talk about weenies in philosophy, right? This is the kind of bullshit that I've been railing against for a couple of decades now. So anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Tune down the passion a little bit. Okay, I got it.
No. Turn it up. Hell, turn it up. Shit.
Okay. Anyway, let's listen a little more.
Aesthetically here.
Wait, you said how do I determine I'm determined for those reasons?
In other words, how would you know that it is for those reasons? Like those are the reasons. Those reasons are what determined you to believe that, as opposed to something else. Because you could believe 2 + 2 = 4 because grapefruits, taste a certain way. That would be a reason that you're determined to believe 2 + 2 = 4. But how do you know it's that specific reason that led you to that belief?
Oh, you're right.
Because you would fucking remember that, right? I mean, if I got my knowledge of basic arithmetic from grapefruits when I was in grade school, I would fucking remember that.
Right, but he's also talking about the flavor of the grapefruit. So whether he knows it or not, he's referring to what do I call it? Synesthetics, no synesthesia.
Synesthesia.
Yes, there
Yeah.
you go, that word. Right, so your brain associates a certain sensation, like a flavor or a smell or a color, with an idea, either a physical or abstract concept, like the number 4, for example. Right, or 2 + 2 = 4 would be a more complex variation, but yeah, it just doesn't matter, right? Like, we remember how we reasoned a thing out. We understand how we reasoned the thing out. And if our reasoning capacities happen to have a glitch in them that we haven't noticed, then oh effing well. Because here's the thing, he's lying to himself and he's lying to us about his own grounding. Because he figured out 2 + 2 = 4 the same way we did. There is nothing in the Bible that addresses this. The Bible does not teach you how to do arithmetic, right? It lists some math, right? So such and such had so many camels and so many donkeys, but it doesn't tell you how to figure out the math, right? You figure that out through the process of learning. The same way, he's lying. This guy is lying about how he figured out 2 + 2 = 4. Period.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's pulling a trick on Tom. He's trying to undermine his belief, and then he's trying to claim that determinism undermines Tom's belief, because Tom believes in a determinism. It undermines all of his beliefs, right?
Well,
And
determinism. You go ahead.
He's moving the goalpost himself. He moves to an outer, to different concentric outer rings of justification, and keeps trying to attack Tom's belief. How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? That sort of thing.
Right.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, in the real world, Hernandez's beliefs are all determined as well. His perceptions, his values, everything that happens in his head is determined, right? So it's not like we're claiming this separate domain of epistemological foundation, right? We're not. We're telling him it's the same as yours, asshole. Like, even if you don't know it, right? So he doesn't get to say, oh well, since yours is this and mine's that, yours is inferior. No, we're saying yours is the same as ours, right? You're just adding this extra step of Magic Man in Sky validated the thing that I already figured out about reality, because I figured it out the same way everybody else did. I went to fucking school. Somebody held up 2 objects and 2 more. I counted them and, oh, look, there's 4, right? Which had nothing to do with religion or God or Magic Man in Sky.
Yeah. Okay. Play a little bit more of this interchange. It doesn't get much better.
Right. We could be in the Matrix or being deluded by Descartes' demon or something. He's just causing my brain to feel these things.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
But I have epistemic justification in the fact that 2 + 2 = 4, which causes me to believe this.
You're determined to believe you have epistemic justification.
Determined to believe, yes.
Right. So you're just pushing back the goalposts.
No, because it's the same.
He was the one that pushed back the goalposts. Now he's saying, oh, you're determined to believe. You're determined to believe that you're determined to believe that you're determined to believe, and he keeps doing that shit. And he's totally missing the point. The reasons are within our mind, right? Within our mind, our memory, our history. That's how we justify things. When you question something, when you question one of your beliefs, you're bringing it into this cognitive sphere that we have, and you're analyzing it. And you find reasons, and all of those reasons are putatively within things that have happened to your mind in the past. And that's how we build up an epistemology. From the time we're born, we build this massive web of understanding of how the world works. And the only reason that we can do that is because the world keeps working the same way over and over and over again. The basketball keeps bouncing with the same, intensity over and over again. And that's, so he's again putting determinism outside of it and trying to say, well, if you're determined, then nothing inside your mind makes it, can be justified at all. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Did I lose everybody? I don't know. How does Eric know his denomination, practice, beliefs aren't a product of his sin nature? I love Nitty. Christian did I highlight this one? Christian epistemology is dumb from the get-go because they already believe they have ever-broken self that incorrectly praises, oh yeah, right, sins.
Yeah, they put a lot of weight to this sin nature thing, and I think they go beyond even what the Bible teaches about its implications. It's it gets into their religious philosophy, their way of doing philosophy and things like that, which I guess is still theology, but yeah, sin nature. I'm rolling my eyeballs. You just can't see it.
Okay.
Same thing. We could be deluded by Descartes' demon, but I don't have any justification to believe that, so it's irrelevant to the question.
Well, I didn't bring up Descartes' demon. You
It's
did.
the same thing. There could be another reason that I believe 2 + 2 =, or there could be another reason I'm determined to believe 2 + 2 = 4, other than the fact of the epistemic justification that I can do the math. But the fact that I can do the math means I have epistemic justification in that reason.
And
So could we be deluded by the Descartes' demon? Absolutely, but we have no reason to believe that. That is an unsupported conclusion. So, I mean, I can't be absolutely certain about anything. We could be. There could be other reasons there. But those other reasons, we have no reason to believe them. They have no justification.
Okay, yeah, and that's not my point. What I'm saying is you're determined to believe something irrelevant to the reasons that you're determined to believe that for. So, in other words, chemicals firing in your brain determine you to believe something, and then another set of chemicals perhaps fire in your brain that lead you to be determined to believe that it is those reasons that you're actually determined to believe it. But if determinism is true, and if you're just something physical, perhaps, or however you want to hash that out, then it's something prior to you that caused you to believe that.
Okay.
So,
something
yes,
prior to you. Something prior to you. God. So he's mistaking his philosophy, where he founds everything in God, basically, with what a naturalist would say. That we found things, basically within our minds and the framework of our lives, and our epistemic foundation is there, right? So he's doing the same thing over and over again, making determinism. Well, if it's just neurons, okay, and there he makes a greedy reductionism, right? It's just neurons. How can it possibly be a belief, right? They love that one too. So.
Right. They don't. It's like they don't understand basic concepts. They don't understand what determinism is, but they want to debunk it. And like first, it's like what they do with evolution. They don't understand what evolution is, but they want to debunk it. They don't understand what determinism is, but they want to debunk it. I'm like, go learn about what it is first, and then come back when you have.
Yeah. Yeah, determinism doesn't mean that we don't have reasons. The reasons are determined. Okay, they're determined by the universe, right? Basically by the rules of the universe, and they're determined by the workings of our brain and the interface that we have with the universe. That doesn't mean we don't have reasons. The reasons are deterministic. And then he goes and says, oh, well, if they're deterministic, then it must be like a magic 8-ball. No, they're fucking reasons. They're called reasons for a reason.
Right. And Hernandez's process for figuring out the things we have in common, like math, right, is a thing we have in common. Hernandez didn't appeal to a God to figure out math. A God didn't reveal math to him. Bibles don't teach you how to add 1 + 1 and 2. None of this is the case. Hernandez learned the things that we have in common through the exact same processes that we learned them. So his basis for those understandings and those perceptions of reality are the same as ours. The driving force behind those is physics. It's not magic man in sky. It's not a hard concept. He's just crazy. Sorry.
Yeah, God, I don't know how to explain this. It's this idea that we and this is one of the things that I wanted to do in this stream, but I need my Apple Notepad to do it properly, and my Apple Notepad is not behaving well this morning. But this idea of phenomenology and how we approach what is happening in our minds and how we relate that to physicalism, right? And they like to reduce everything to word concepts like determinism, and then complain about these word concepts. But word concepts never completely depict the reality of what's happening, right? So once you start reducing it to cognitive things that are attached to a word, which has a ton of fucking baggage in everybody's mind. Everybody's mind has a slightly different bag of things around every word. I mean, as soon as they start doing that, they have left the field where we can really understand what is going on, right?
Right.
And
Right.
the reason that I adhere to scientism is I believe that first, okay, I take naturalism and physicalism, and I take that as basically as my given. Okay, I'm going to assume naturalism and physicalism, and then I'm going to try to flesh out what we are really talking about if we are human beings, if we are Homo sapiens, and if we are organisms sitting atop the planet Earth. And then I go ahead and try to figure out the concept from there and try to flesh out what the word means with that method. And if I fail to do that, I mean, if I failed all of the time, then I would start to question my assumption of physicalism and naturalism. Like
All right.
in logic, you get to basically inject a proposition, basically a tentative proposition. And then what you do is you compare it to all the other propositions. And if it's logically contradictory, then your assumption is incorrect and you throw it out. But if it's not logically contradictory and it works with everything else, then you keep it, and you can keep it, and then you can do further deduction based on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how logical arguments work. So
He knows that. He's pretending he doesn't understand that.
God, I don't know if he really does know it. I think he just read this preachy book by Moreland, and he developed a narrative, and the narrative sounds so good in his mind because he's rehearsed it so much while reading his hand on the Bible, rehearsing his fucking narrative, and and he's never really thought it. He's never questioned his own beliefs, right? Which is
You're
what
not
everybody
allowed to as a Christian.
Yeah, you aren't. So you found that debate, Scott. Thank you. So
My pleasure.
Dillahunty and Eric Hernandez. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a rich one.
Yeah, that's back in 2015. I found a couple of like interviews between the two, and maybe one more debate, but that's kind of like the earliest that I could find.
Yeah, let me go ahead and put this in the description. But I'm just like a fish out of water this morning. None of my shit is working. It's driving me crazy. Key jump, and this one is. So where was that debate hosted on? What channel? At Dillahunty's channel.
That was a mirror of the debate.
Okay.
I chose Matt Dillahunty's channel because I don't like giving clicks and views to
other people, right?
evangelicals.
Yep. Yeah, I did that with base theory the other day with Grayson. Basically, I linked his channel, his premiere, rather than the original debate on Standing in Poop channel. I didn't like that one. Oh, let's run this a little more and hear what else he has to say before they're done with this. I'm not sure how long it goes.
Just neurons firing, that's correct. And the reasons are a reflection of the neurons firing. So the neurons firing reflect the reasons, which are cause me to determine resulting belief, which is also neurons firing. So it's like,
What do you mean?
What
do you mean the neurons firing?
What?
And I'm sorry, I cut you off. I think there's a.
So if we have a row of dominoes, and you could say these neurons are the first 5 dominoes, and they constitute the reasons, and then that knocks over the 6th domino, which is the belief. And yes, the 6th belief is determined by the first 5 dominoes. Yes.
Right.
I don't see any.
Yeah. So the first domino was not the reasons that you gave. The first domino was something physical.
All the neurons are physical.
So what? So what?
Those would be the reasons. How the neurons interact in your brain, that's all physical.
Okay, but earlier you mentioned nothing about neurons. You mentioned about when you get two things and two things that equals 4. That has nothing to do with neurons.
That has everything to do with neurons. That's how your brain processes the information, is through the interactions with the neurons.
Well, I would disagree that your brain processes anything, in the sense that if you're talking about your consciousness is in your brain, but that's an entirely different topic. I don't know
I
if you're
can't believe
understanding
how
my point.
stupid
That,
he's being right now.
okay,
Yeah.
claiming that you have reasons to believe something in spite of being determined that you believe it is something you are equally determined to believe in and of itself. So you're just pushing back the goalposts and pointing to something else that you're determined to believe and claiming that's actually the reason for it. When I'm saying, no, the reason for that is not the reasons you gave. It's simply because your brain was a byproduct of something that led it to believe that, assuming, in your words, that it's your brain that processes and believes these things.
Right, you're confusing metaphysics and epistemology. I'm not making a metaphysical claim.
There.
Yes,
So he keeps doing that. It's like, okay, Thomas explained, okay, I believe 2 + 2 is 4 for reasons. Okay. And reasons, in our brains, in our mind, basically are neurons firing. It's entirely physical, right? And this guy is saying, well, if it's entirely physical, then it can't be the reason you believe. But it fucking is. So he's saying that physicalism is false, therefore I'm right. So he's not understanding what a physicalist thinks at all. And he keeps applying his own fucking philosophy to what Tom is saying, and over again saying, well, if it's physical or if it's determined, well, then you can't justify it, which is his original fucking claim. So he's like, he keeps trying to verify his own claim by making the claim over and over again at every turn in this discussion. And that is what they do. I don't know. Gentlemen?
Yeah. Huh?
Wow. Is my passion scaring you guys off?
No, I don't want to interrupt your passion, so I'm
You
reeling
do
mine
want-
in.
Yeah,
I,
the
I
reason
stepped away for a minute, so I had to rush back and reply to you.
The reason why I want you and Scott in on every conversation that I have about my ideas about consciousness and philosophy is because I want a little fucking pushback, or I want to make sure that I'm being clear about it, because I guess my goal is to put forth my ideas about the mind and consciousness and physicalism and naturalism. But if I just fucking passionately spew shit, I don't trust that myself without some feedback and pushback. So either pushback or feedback, whatever. So that's why I want you guys in this discussion, because I'm not sure if I'm being clear about it at all.
Well, you're being clear. We all use language a little bit differently than each other, but as long as we understand what each other means, it's fine. And I don't have an objection or disagreement with anything that you've said here. And I would love to see that. If that happens,
Leo,
please.
I would love to host your debate with Eric Hernandez.
Yeah.
And I would love to have Eric Hernandez on the channel. And Danny said that he would reach out to him and see if he wanted to come on this tiny old channel and have a talk.
Have you communicated with Danny on that?
I'm going to send Danny an email and double down and say, yeah, I do want Eric Hernandez around. I'd like to be able to but I got a feeling it's gonna be the same kind of spinny thing that he's doing with T-Jump here, where you just keep moving he's moving the fucking goalposts all over the fucking place, metaphysics to epistemology and back again.
Or he may just do that boxing promoter thing and say the venue is too small. So he wouldn't.
I mean,
do it.
I think that's why I can't get any of these apologists to come debate me. My venue is too small for them. I don't mean anything. So, and that's fine. But yeah, he's lying anyways. And I'll say this again. He's lying about how he arrived at his view of the world. He didn't start with Magic Man and Sky revealed things to me, and then I based those revelations, used those revelations as the framework for everything else I figured out about the world. That's not how that works. That is not what happened in his life. But by the time the human mind is even capable of doing apologetic backflips and contortions and all this metaphysical, philosophical nonsense before the mind is even capable of being tangled in those kinds of knots. It has already figured out a lot about the world that it's in. It has already figured out that you probably shouldn't keep putting random things in your mouth to learn about them, right? It has already figured out that if you have 2 pieces of candy, you turn your head and you turn back and now there's only one, somebody took your other piece of candy, right? There was 2, now there's 1. It doesn't know how to count. The toddler doesn't know how to count 1 + 1 = 2, but it has a basic understanding of 2 because it knows when one of them suddenly disappears, right? Once it's gotten past that object permanence hurdle where it understands, where it remembers the object that was there a minute ago. So, the experience of the way that the brain forms understandings and neural connections and reasons things out in the world happens before theology becomes even possible for a human mind. So he's lying to himself about the true grounding or the true framework upon which he's built his understanding of the world.
Yeah. Yep, like my first science experiment, learning not to poke myself in the eye. That's one of the reasons why I make the claim that mathematics is basically from the physical universe. It's something that we discovered, that it actually exists out there, rather than something that we made up, basically. And that's kind of a big argument too. So.
Right.
Oh.
Right. And then they keep using that certainty argument, right? How can you know? Well, it depends on what you mean by know, right? Like, it's always coming back to they're certain of their beliefs, and we're only reasonably certain about ours. Therefore, they win because they've got more certainty. And like, that's not how this works, right? I mean, I can't think of anybody in the world more certain than the Muslim jihadist or the Islamic jihadist that is about to blow themselves up. Nobody's more certain than them in that moment, right? Otherwise, they can pull that trigger. That has nothing to do with whether or not their beliefs are correct or their foundation, their epistemological foundation is solid. Nothing to do with that at all.
Yeah, certainty is not a good thing.
We have degrees. We have degrees of confidence. That's what you're supposed to have. That it should scale. This should scale. That confidence in something should scale with the evidence that you have and the logic that you have to work with that evidence. And if your facts are wrong or your logic is faulty, then all you can do is the best you can do, right? And even that's even true of religion, right? And I make this argument so often with these people. I'm like, look, let's suppose your ideas about God and Jesus are basically correct. Understand that the Jehovah's Witnesses out there aren't choosing to be wrong. The Catholics aren't choosing to be wrong. The Mormons aren't choosing to be wrong. Deists, Wiccans, atheists, anti-theists aren't choosing to be wrong if your views are correct, right? If they got a hold of some bad information, or if their logical processes aren't as mature or glitch-free as they imagine them to be, F&O, right? That's not a moral character failing. They're trying to make sense of the world the best as they can. If there is some super entity out there with a personal agenda, not our problem, not our fault, right? Because we're doing the best we can. And so what good is it that we have billions of people out there in the quote unquote wrong religion with the assumption that there is a true religion? What good is it? Because all these people, Catholics and Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, et cetera, all have this assumption of God as part of the way they make sense of the world. And where has that gotten them? Nowhere. Because if Hernandez's views about Christ are correct, those people are all going to hell right along with T-Jump, me and you, right? So what good has it done them to incorporate an assumption of God into their worldview if they're going to end up in the same damn place, right? It's worthless.
We got to play the same game with them about why they believe in this deity, and then they'll come up with, because of the Bible, and okay, you wouldn't really believe in anything from the Bible unless you believed in a deity. So right there, you're circular, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, why do you believe in the Bible? It's just like, well, I believe in the word of man. It's like, well, there's a lot of word of man. Why don't you believe in all the other words of man? And why do you pick that particular written text? And what would they come down to? They would eventually have to say, well, I have a personal relationship with God, or I have faith, or something. But how do they ground their shit? I mean, it's the same way. It's the same kind of circular bullshit. Well, I believe in God because my dad was a pastor, and he taught me about God, and I just believe it. And well, how did your dad learn about God? And it's like on and on and on. And you could play the same fucking find a foundation. It's like, where's Waldo? Where's the foundation? Find the foundation. Whereas with physicalism and naturalism, we can fucking go on. We can go on until fucking the moon disappears, providing one reason after another that interconnects with all the other reasons, right?
Right.
So we have a culture of we've taken reason and we've turned it into mathematics. Of course, in our culture, we created mathematics, and we've taken this idea of finding reasons for things and poking around at the reasons for our beliefs. We've taken it to a real art form, and we can rely on all that. But, why would you believe in all that if it's determined? Well, because it all interleaves and the network constantly verifies the network over and over again. Every thread of the network verifies every other thread of the network. As soon as we find a supernatural thread, one that's sticking out of the carpet, right? Sticking up, like fucking glowing day glow green and dancing like Jesus, then we'll start to question things, right? But I've never seen that.
Right. So
You like my metaphor?
I do. I like your metaphor. And they're just they can't even make up their mind about whether or not that thread's there or not. Sometimes they treat it as something entirely separate from our domain of physical reality. And sometimes they treat it as the very foundation that runs all the way through it. It's everywhere, right? They can't decide if God is entirely outside of our physical lived experience or not, outside of our universe, outside of our time or not. They flip-flop on every damn thing they ever say about anything. In the meantime, Hebrews 11:1 defines faith. Faith is the substance or essence of things hoped for. And that in turn is the evidence of things not seen. So it is based on hope, which is an emotion. It is wishful thinking by definition and automatically a logical fallacy. It is not a literal substance, right? Faith isn't a literal substance. It just means essence of the things hoped for. So here they have a thing they've heard about, and now they hope it's true. And they hope in it so strongly, they invest so much of their emotion into it, that they take the hope as evidence that it's real, even though they've got of things not seen means things you don't have evidence for, right? You don't have any empirical or logical evidence for it. Your evidence for the thing you're hoped for is the hope itself. That is Hebrews 11:1. It is all circular reasoning. I hope it's true, therefore it's true. That my hope proves it's real.
11:1.
Hebrews 11:1 defines faith. And this is the true foundation of their faith. Literally, it's defined here in this chapter, here in this verse.
Did they go ahead and talk about later on about, okay, when you have faith, like you have faith in God, then you start to get this feeling of a personal connection with God after you have faith in God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get this feeling of God, like a feeling, air quotes.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So did they go on and elaborate on that about how it, like, once you have faith, then you get all these things from God, once you have faith? I think that's the theme of Christianity, isn't it?
It is. It's just, you adopt a bias based on what you want to be true, based on what you heard and it sounded good. And then you seek to confirm the bias. Again, a logical fallacy. Confirmation bias, by definition, is the process they go through. Yeah. You adopt a bias because it sounds good, you invest in it, and then you seek to confirm what you've already adopted as true.
Yeah, and they don't have any understanding of human psychology because they have no understanding of the physical nature of the mind, and they refuse to. And if you understand human psychology, you realize that we are 99% emotion driven, and we do almost everything based on feelings. 1% of the time, we bring out that culture of reason and mathematics of reasoning, and we start to analyze our beliefs. And at that point, we find things out, basically. We either verify or don't verify. Like 1 + 1 is 2, right? Go get a couple oranges. See what you got. Take one orange away. You got one orange. Bring that orange back. Well, we're going to call that 2 oranges.
Right.
Like,
So mathematics is the language that describes the facts which existed even before we had math, right? There always was an object. It always was true that a second object means now there's 2. This was true even before humans existed. This would be true in a universe where there were no sentient entities at all. An object simply is an object. 2 objects is simply 2 objects. Mathematics is how we explain that, how we talk about it.
Yeah.
So
math is discovered.
Yeah.
Not
right, yeah. And math, the facts of math are discovered, but the language of math is created in order to talk about the facts that we're discovering. So
the description of how the universe works.
Yeah.
What if we existed in a universe where, like, you could have one orange, right? But you could never have another orange. It would always have to be like a pear or a grape. There couldn't be 2 oranges, right? There couldn't be 2 electrons. There couldn't be 2 atoms that are the same. There's this thing about physicality, that there can be 2 things in different places in space-time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are the same thing. It's kind of weird when you think about time, because we believe the orange is the same from 1 second to the next, right?
Sure.
But not necessarily.
Right, not necessarily. So
Not necessarily.
And a lot of times people propose impossibilities, logical impossibilities, and they see a way past it. Somebody the other day said you can't have a triangle that doesn't have 3 sides. And I'm like, technically you can. If the edges of the triangle are not a straight edge, but they are a gradually cylindrical rounding that rounds over to behind the shape, then technically there's no one exact point where you can say that this side of the triangle ends and the next side begins. Therefore, technically it doesn't have 3 sides, and yet technically it also does. So It's possible to create a shape where you have a triangle that does not specifically have 3 defined sides. It depends on a matter of perspective, and it's not entirely a game of semantics to make this point, because from a certain visual vantage point it has 3 sides. So as a practical frame of reference it has 3 sides, but if you look close enough you'll see that it's got this rounded edge that has no definitive start and end. So it's possible, right? It's possible to have a universe that functions differently even than ours does, but we simply have the one that we have. Our senses simply work the way that they do. Our minds simply work the way that they do. Cultural influence simply exists and works the way that it does, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, his whole idea that we couldn't figure anything out without grounding it in God is even ignores the history of the human experience, not just the individual experience where he pretends he doesn't remember how he figured basic shit out about life, but also the history of humanity itself, because theism took a very long time to develop in humans. It was a gradual progression of ideas of agency in place of not being able to explain things without agency because people were ignorant. And it became these super people. And eventually, one super person would be a favored, and then one super person would be jealous of the other super people. And then eventually, only one super person was worshipped because he's so jealous. And then the other ones became lesser, and then they become not gods at all. And then you end up with monotheism. Monotheism is a fairly late psychological invention in the realm of human experience and human religious history. So his idea, and theism even that took time to develop. So his position ignores the fact of human religious history, not just his own. And so it automatically isn't valid, even if there is one super being up in the sky somewhere watching us who has a close personal relationship, whatever. The foundation for human civilization and for human reasoning and for the concepts that we use to figure out our place in the world, the foundation of those things individually and as a species did not start with God. It is not built upon the idea of God. It is a later idea, so we can't present it as a foundational idea. We can't. End of rant.
That's interesting. They believe in true believers at the very beginning, right? Like the creationists would. Adam and Eve were obviously believed in God because God came down to talk to them and had coffee with them and tea and biscuits and whatever. But
Sure.
so they deny the history of monotheism, which was, no, isn't the history of monotheism kind of based on the jealousy of God? You mentioned jealousy, right? I'm jealous of,
Sure.
these other gods. You shall not worship any god before me. God damn it.
Right. Me, damn it.
Like, yeah. So it makes God sort of a me. I'm just like the one true, right? The one true God.
Right.
So I mean, it's rotten from the start. With that kind of thinking, that your role model is this jealous motherfucker who there shall be no God before me, right? So I mean, that automatically sets you up to be an asshole.
Sure it does. Well, I mean, if you go through the entire Old Testament and then you see it again in the New, though it's not as boldly stated, the God character checks off every single box of diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality. And also for sociopathy and psychopathy and all these other problems, right? Like every extreme personality dysfunction that we've identified in our modern era is exactly what that character is based on. So it's modeled on the worst of humanity, not the best of humanity. The God character is a manifestation of the worst things about humanity, not our best, right? And then, so of course, if you have this entire narrative which treats our worst as our best, as the ideals that we're supposed to be striving for, of course you end up with thousands of years of bloody history and division and chaos and bigotry and sexism and racism and everything else. Of course you do. What else are you going to get? Right. And then, of course, you end up with these apologists who, the way that they reason and the way that they argue and the way that they leverage for social inequality, for power in these dichotomies that they're not deserving, they just assume a certain level of due credence that nobody else is due. They authority and respect and specialness and everything else, just because they say so, is straight out of the book of narcissistic personality dynamic, except that they have a religious excuse for it. I'm righteous and I'm entitled, not because I say so, but because the creator of the universe said so, right? It's this trump card. It's like, I get out of accountability free every single time. And it's like, this is why they argue the way that they argue. If anybody's ever been in a long-term relationship with a domestic abuser who has narcissistic personality disorder, you will recognize the behavioral and the conversational patterns. It is the same mechanisms in play for how they're leveraging dominance in your social economy. Everything's about that for them. Their privilege, their entitlement, their righteousness, because it just is, and you have no basis to question their righteousness, no basis to question them. And if you question them, you're questioning your God. If you doubt them, you're doubting your God. If you ignore them, you're ignoring your God, right? Because the line that divides where they end and their God begins gets very, very blurry in practice. Because at the end of the day, they are their own God. They just aren't able to admit it.
Yeah, and the interesting part is that this is just so obviously based on a family structure and tribal structure of early primates, right? Or primates in general. We have this tribal structure, and we have a leader at the top. We have the family structure. We have the of course, if you go Old Testament, it would be the father or the male, whatever. That runs everything, and he's at the top, and he's the one true God. And then the tribal leader is the one true God. You go a little bit further out, right? Well, then they had problems with tribal leaders, so they tried to make them accountable to a big tribal leader called God, or the gods, or whatever. So, I mean, it's just so obviously structured around that tribal man-driven mentality that, that basically we probably needed as primitives, that sort of structure. And there's always a bigger male that was going to beat you up, right? And he became the leader, right? It's like God is the biggest male, and he's omnipotent, and he can beat anybody up. Nice claim. My God's omnipotent. He can beat anybody up.
Right.
Like if you've heard two kids arguing about what their dad can do, my dad can beat your dad up, and
same thing.
Back and forth. It's the same kind of shit. It's just such primitive psychology that all of this is based on. And then they go on. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's also childish, but go ahead.
Yeah, they go on in the Bible, and they take that family structure and they make that a big part of the Bible. That adhering to the male, and women can't talk in church, and the kids get the rod and all of that stuff. I mean, it's just also fucking obvious. It's just and sickening, and something we really need to take a look at, because we are not primitives anymore.
Yeah, it's time for those training wheels to come off. Honestly, we needed them at one point, but we don't anymore. Now they're holding us back.
Oh my God, Scott had a meeting and he's got to go. Oh no.
So at the heart of this, and I always feel bad for these fundamentalists, because at the heart of it is the same thing that's at the heart of all clinical narcissism as it forms in their informative years. It comes from a place of their emotional needs were not met for whatever reason. And they end up growing into this way of feeling about themselves where they feel empty inside or yucky inside or unworthy of love, right? And so they have to crutch all of their sense of worth and their identity on something external to themselves, right? Look at this other person that I identify with. Look at this other structure of ideas I identify with, or this institution or something. Look at the bling, look at the power, look at the something. Don't look at me, right? Look at this thing that I crutch my identity on and praise it. And by extension, I'll feel good about myself, because they don't know how to take personal inventory, and they don't know how to feel good about themselves. They feel empty and yucky and unloved and unlovable. And so that's where these ideas in Christianity come from, because grace is the offer of undeserved kindness. It is the proposition that you are not worthy of love, that you are empty or yucky or something inside, and that you need to be forgiven for that. And that if you're ever going to have any real worth in the real world, then you need to crutch that worth on something that isn't yucky, and something external to you that is wonderful. And then they pick this idea of a super dad. My super dad is so wonderful and beyond reproach and so larger than life that my fame comes by the extension of I'm his son. My grandeur comes from the fact that I'm basing my worth on his approval, his validation, and my relationship to him in the world and personally within myself, right? And so it's just this, it's the very same thing that a lot of humans go through. They grow up and their emotional needs are not met. They don't know how to identify themselves outside the context of someone else. And they can't get over feeling unworthy. And so Christianity specifically adopts that narrative. And then they go around telling everybody else, you're unworthy too. Right. But super dad's willing to forgive you and love you anyways. That's how great he is. Right. And it's just this, it's so inherently abusive and self-destructive, and it prevents them from, because they're not even allowed to outgrow it. And this is the Genesis story from beginning to end. Super dad had kids for all the wrong reasons. He bases his worth on you, even though he won't come out and say it. And you better be basing yours on his. And if you say or do anything that risks outgrowing your utter dependence on that relationship paradigm, then you have somehow wronged super dad. And now he has to do the same thing that all narcissist parents do: eternal discard, as punishment for your offense of becoming an autonomous adult who takes responsibility for their own life. How dare you, right? So that's what's underneath all of this. So when I see people like Hernandez arguing about his grift and how he's trying to validate it, my heart breaks for him, because I know the pain he must have gone through in his childhood to have grown up to be a grown ass man that can't find a better foundation for his identity than that, and that thinks nobody can, right? Because if he's evaluating himself by those standards, he's evaluating you by that same standard. if he's unworthy outside the context of love and of respect and everything else, unless he crushes his identity and becomes an extension of Father, then that means you aren't worth anything either, because you haven't done that yet. And which is why it's perfectly fine in his religion if you get eternally thrown away like trash or worse, because you haven't graduated into your worth by becoming part of the family. So end of rant, but it just makes me so damn sad when I see it. This is why I don't get angry. I just get sad for these people.
Yeah, it is sad. But imagine for a minute, like early primitive tribes, right? You know, a small tribe, 20, 30 people, fucking trucking through the woods, starving their ass off, freezing their ass off, whatever, trying to live. And then there's a hierarchy within the tribe, and there's hierarchies within the families, right? So it's based on the familial model, you know, mom and dad and the kids, right? And the kids kind of grow up looking at the parents as being, you know, these godlike figures. And then the tribe kind of grows up with the biggest, smartest, most capable male coming to the forefront, right? And then they start to build a culture and of myth, right, to explain things. So the leader male happens to have a connection with the spirit gods of the forest, right? And he happens to have a deeper connection than you do, and he's going to tell you how the spirit gods of the forest work. And if you start questioning him, he can say, well, I'm getting my information from the spirit gods of the forest, therefore you have to shut the fuck up and listen to me. But I mean, that would allow for a rather organized tribe if everybody believed in that leader. Okay, if kids believe in their parents.
Hey, Mike.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I noticed that visually you're not represented in the screen that I'm looking at. Or it's just a video? I don't know if that's going to stop people from being able to hear you or not.
No,
I don't know how that works in Restream. Oh, okay.
No, I'm just bringing things in from OBS so I can put anything.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it can Restream if I'm sharing a video, but I don't also have my avatar in there as an extra window, then nobody can hear me or on StreamYard.
You know, but extend this idea and look. Okay, a family works really well if all the kids obey the parents, right? We know that. We're bigger than they are, so we get to fucking, you know, push them and make them obey, right? And it's for their own good because they're coming up, right? And then now each member of the family should obey the leader of the tribe, because tribes work really well if we have a leader and we have somebody to break that. The democracy was probably pretty far afield at that point, right? So it was like a hierarchy. And if you believe in that tribal leader, and if that tribal leader can appeal to something greater, or if you have multiple tribes and you can get both tribes to agree that there is a bigger leader out there, a myth, right? It's a mythical leader or God, the spirit force. You know, these two tribal leaders are both priests of the spirit force of the force, or the spirit force, right? So you believe in that. So then you get the two tribes to get along together, and you can see how that would benefit us, right? So that kind of a hierarchy is beneficial. And somehow those myths took off and fucked around, and they had like the God Wars, right? In 1000 BC, you know, they came up with monotheism and all of that. But I mean, you can see how all of that shit served us up to a point. You know, and I guess it still serves us today. We have the president, and we have cops, and we have, you know, we have the leaders, we have the mayor of the town, and all of this bullshit. But it's all about hierarchies, and they've taken this myth and somehow kept it alive for 2,000 fucking years when it should have just disappeared in about maybe at least by 800 AD. You know, we don't need the goddamn myth anymore. You know, we know what the fuck is going on. We understand how we have to work together. We understand how we have to elect our leaders and, you know, within reason, follow our leaders, right? That sort of thing. We don't need any of this shit anymore, yet they still have it. And look at if the tribal leader can convince all the tribe members that they are of a sinful and dirty nature, and I am not. I am the pure one, and I can lead you. I mean, isn't that fucking convenient to convince you that you have a sinful and dirty nature. You just want to sin, that sort of thing. I mean, it's so obvious what the fuck happened to us psychologically. And it is so obvious how we have to take another look at our psychology and start to make some fucking reasonable, derive some reasonable conclusions from that, right?
Right. Rather than do these acrobatic mental contortions to exempt oneself from that discovery, from that process, from those obligations, like Hernandez does. He doesn't have to do any of that work. He can just shrug it all off with his religious narrative.
Yep. Anyway.
Yeah. Hello, Gur and Nerdy, and God equals the square root of -1. And
Peter, do you want to address your channel concerns, or are you going to do that in a separate stream? And
I mean, I can. I've really been wrestling with it. You're right. I don't want to say I'm leaving YouTube and then do what everybody else. What I might do is announce that I'm leaving for good, but then also simultaneously schedule my comeback.
Exactly.
I might just do it because it's so frustrating. I've been struggling with a lot of frustrations, as most people know, about my place in the community and whether or not I think that. I don't know. See, originally when I started my channel, the entire point was just an open bar. Right. If there's no place else that you can stop by and see the people that you know and love, and it's because it's great to run into each other in the interwebs. It's nice.
Yeah.
And then there's a good chance my bar might be open. And if you feel like listening to me and engaging with it, fine. If you want to kind of drown me out as the TV at the sports bar and talk amongst yourself, I'm fine with that too. And that was fine for a while, but. I've really been struggling to get enough sleep lately. Really struggling, and seeing specialists where that was.
Don't let that affect your
right. So
decisions.
Right. So I woke up the other yesterday morning, and then I noticed a trend that a lot of times what wakes me up is anxiety, thinking about all the issues that I wrestle with in my channel. Right. And because most of it's not positive stuff. It's necessary stuff. Someone needs to be talking about the issues that we talk about. Somebody needs to. But there's plenty of people talking about these issues. For the psychological and the health aspects of it, you can go to Theremin Trees, wealth of information there, or you can go to any number of podcasts in our community that talk about that. Skeptic Haven spends a lot of time talking about mental health and the effects of religion on mental health and things like that. You don't need me for that, that's for sure. And as far as the open bar, I love being the open bar guy, but I just feel like everybody does it better than I do anyways. And I'm not fishing for compliments. It is not a pity party either. I've been thinking lately that I've got a limited amount of resources because I don't sleep very well at night, and we're still trying to figure out why. And while that's happening, I feel like I need to refocus my efforts to do things that bring me peace and that make me money. Those are the two things. And if I felt like that I was a needed voice in the community, in the web, that nobody else was saying the things that I say, that nobody else is providing for some of the things that I provide for, then I would make time just for those things. But as I look back and
everybody is that. Everybody feels that way, and everybody is that way. Everybody just provides one sliver, right? We're putting our opinions out there to be being recorded for internet history. Mm-hmm. And your opinion is, to me, extremely valuable. That's why I keep inviting you on as my sounding board. And your streams are, just always inspire thought. And for me, and I'm sure everybody else that listens to you and has subscribed to you. But I want to point out that Carol the Atheist, Carol the Atheist and Captain Death's Dave both did a stream yesterday, and Carol was saying that they didn't feel a part of the community, and Carol's on my chats all the time, and if she wasn't, I would be like, where the fuck is she? Why is she not here? And I guess some, you're going to run into people in chat and on live streams that are going to fucking piss on you a little bit. And that's just the way people are, right? But you can't take one opinion.
Oh, no, I don't.
That you don't have a fucking voice.
Right. So I noticed that Carol struggles with feeling like she's part of the community, and I
Yeah.
get that. I've tried to
I'm-
accommodate that, but here's the thing. I don't think she's in chat right now, and I don't want to talk about her when she's not here. It's catch-22 because I have a point I want to make about it, but I don't know how fair it is to make the point when she's not here. Um, but she's left comments under some of my videos that were troubling. And that's not why I've been thinking about stepping back away from YouTube for a little while. It's not. It's just not part of it. I just feel like that's her stuff that she's wrestling with. If she wants to bring something, anybody in the community, look, if there's something that I say, and I sometimes do, that's offensive or doesn't set right with you, or it seems half baked or whatever, do feel free to bring that to my attention, and I will have a real discussion with you about it. And I'll assume you're right and try to work from there. Right? I'm not going to get defensive, and I think most people that know me well enough know that. But if somebody doesn't want to, maybe I'm not worth the trouble, or maybe it's not that they're not deeply bothered enough to bother. Then that's fine too, right? You don't have to bring every problem to me, even if it's about me. You can just kind of let it go if that's what you prefer to do. But please don't leave comments under the video that seem completely like removed from reality and then refuse to engage with me about it. It's one or the other. If you and this is a thing I've had with personal friends lately too, that'll bring problems to me that are about me, but then they don't want to continue the discussion so we can work through it. And when somebody does that, if somebody brings you, yes, did James walk back his comments about Pinecreek? I don't remember
Yeah.
which comments are you talking about, Jerry, and I'll let you know. If somebody brings a problem that's about me to me, then I'm assuming they're there to work through the issues, and maybe if the problem really is me, to provide me an opportunity for growth, right? And I'm appreciative of that opportunity. Or if it's a misunderstanding, we can clear it up. Or if they're basing it on some struggle that's really about them, then we can at least identify it and I can help them through it, whatever, right? But if somebody brings me a problem that's about me and then they refuse to finish the conversation, they refuse to work through it to figure it out what's going on and what can we do about it, then what that tells me is they just want me to feel like shit. That's it.
Yeah.
They just want me to feel it, because if they really are trying to be constructive, then it's the introduction to a conversation. If it's not the introduction to a conversation, don't bring it to me, right? Because I'm not interested in the only reason people are bringing this to me because they want me to feel like shit. There's nothing productive about that. So, but I don't take it personal. It's not really core to the frustrations I've been having with YouTube lately. I do feel like everybody that has a stream does it better than I do. And here's part of the problem. I have, especially on my own channel, I've got this kind of smooth, mellow, low key, just like almost like Bob Ross kind of vibe. And that's very intentional. But the upside is that if you want to tune it out mentally and just pay attention to chat, right? Then, or if you just want to feel, some people listen to my streams just because they're doing laundry or working out or something, and they just want to feel like they're hearing the voice of somebody that they know, right? They want to feel connected. They want to feel a presence of, the community, right? And that's their opportunity to do so. And it's not really about the topic material. It's just about that, connection while they're doing other stuff. And that's fine. But the downside to the mellowness of my voice and my tone is that I am easy to tune out. And so I might be making a really great point, but it's not noticed because I'm so mellow. People are asleep. I put them to sleep, or they've drifted away into their own thoughts, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing
Yeah, you're
offensive
like
about that.
the pink noise of YouTube.
Yes, and that's actually what I set out to be, right? And so that's not offensive to me at all, but it's a
Right.
catch-22 because if I really want people to be psychologically engaged, gripped, hooked, right, to pull them in and get them provoked on an issue, then I've got to bring more passion than I do. I've got to go up an octave or two. I've got to vary my tones more than I do. I've got to put more energy and passion into it than I do. But the problem is, I'm tired. I'm tired. I don't get enough sleep at night. I can't put that kind of passion into it, which is why the whole Bob Ross vibe works for me, because I can be tired and still hold that tone. And so it's catch-22. So, oh, hello, Lena. How are you today?
What?
Are the things I'm saying making sense? Does this make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, hi, Lena, and God, I missed everybody else. And Gary Pena is back. Doug posted a clip of your comments saying he was responsible for people dying because of his political positions. Oh, he posted one of your clips.
Oh, I did not know that I'd ever been featured on Pinecreek. That's kind of like somebody personally etching a poem about me in the inside of the bathroom stall at Burger King. Like,
That's high
thanks.
praise, man. That's
That's high praise.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Dying because of his political positions. I don't know. I'll need context. I don't think those were my exact words, but if you're talking about like the LGBT stuff, sure. Like bullying causes problems in the real world, right? Our dying son says, how can James be contacted? That's a good question. I mean,
should I have him email me and I can hook the two of you up by a joint
yeah,
email?
that's fine. Do they already have your email?
Well, I can put it down here again.
I mean, if you're going to share your email, I don't know. I mean, maybe I should just share mine.
I'm putting down my personal email. So I came out of the closet as Mike Bruznak here about a year ago, and so far nobody's attacked my house. I haven't lost any jobs. I haven't been arrested.
Right.
It's going pretty good for me. Anyway, so yeah, so email me and I could hook you guys up if you don't want to put your email out there.
Yes, that sounds fine. At some point in the future, I've already noticed it happening. Sometimes when I go to buy from somebody or sell to someone or work with someone, they'll Google me first. Then they find all the controversial stuff that I've engaged with on the internet. And then they think, nah, you're one of those guys. And then all of a sudden the deal falls through. And I don't want to have that keep happening.
Our dying son, you've got a ranch. What is your YouTube site? Why don't I know our dying son? Do you guys keep changing your fucking names? Because if you do that, Speed ain't gonna be able to keep up with you.
Yeah, we ain't gonna know who you are. Well, no context.
You gonna fucking know who you are. Yeah. Anyway,
so drop a link to your channel, Our Dying Son.
Link to your channel.
I mean, yeah. Edward.
Oh, Edward Curia. Okay. Well, Jesus Christ. You see, you can't change your fucking name. Don't fucking.
Well, you technically can, but then we won't remember. We won't know who you are.
James' statement was as inflammatory as I've heard.
So here's the thing. Like I recognized the problems of Pinecreek before the rest of the community did, but I didn't make an issue out of it, right? I came up, I addressed it, I moved on, I didn't care. And it just never came up again. Pinecreek didn't become a big point of controversy in the community until he had a falling out with Jay. And then Jay's like, right? And then it became news, right? But until then, I just didn't care. In passing, did I ever say anything negative about what Pinecreek does in his channel? Yes, I did. It was more nuanced than that. I don't remember my exact words, but I'm not the kind of guy that throws out a statement like that without nuance and without extrapolating on a point, without context, right? I just don't. So
what was it? His anti-trans bullshit that he's.
Oh, it was on Pocket Locker's channel, says Jerry. I don't know. Like
Anti-trans.
It could have been that. I mean, somebody says he's not anti-trans, but sure he is.
Yeah, right.
So he's very anti-trans.
I listened to him, and I'll tell you the subtext. He's got issues. You know that he's probably working through his issues, but he's got issues. So Pinecreek has issues.
Right. So here's the thing: nobody if it's Pinecreek or Rebecca from Bread of Life or Sal Cordova or whatever. I don't mention any of these people till somebody else does, right? I don't watch their stuff. I don't make streams about them. If somebody else, especially in their own space, if I'm sharing a stream with Jay, for example, and it's his channel, and he brings it up, I'll address it. I'll make a statement about them in context. But I just don't have the energy to hate watch people or to make entire streams about them. It's just, I just don't. So
I do for a few individuals like Eric Hernandez and Sal Cordova and Standing for Truth and Ron Matt. I got my favorites, you know, that sort of thing. But.
Right. In fact, I remember Jay and Doug were about to have a conversation together about it, right? To see if they could like come to any understanding or what. I have no idea what Doug's motivation was. And as Doug logged in to gather, I'm like, well, I'm gonna go. I'll see you guys later. And Doug took it personally, like it was a gesture of disrespect that I didn't think he mattered enough to stay around and engage with. And I didn't find out about that until the next day that Doug took that personally. And
Really?
half of me was mildly amused, and the other half of me felt like, what the hell? Because as far as I knew, Doug wasn't there for me. As far as I knew, Doug wasn't looking for an engagement with me. Why would I stay? I don't care about Doug. I don't hate Doug. I don't think that he's less whatever than me. I just don't. I don't have any personal investment in Doug. So when he walked in to gather, because you're going to have a conversation with Jay, I'm like, have fun, have your conversation, right? It wasn't meant as a disrespect, but he took it as such, and I just, I could extrapolate my thoughts on that, but I guess I don't really need to. So I don't know. It sounds to me like Doug has more of an investment in what I think about him than I do about what he thinks of me. I just don't care, right? So
Okay, I found a channel called Our Dying Sun that I'm subscribed to, but it's about weather.
So Jerry Penna, are you? I don't know if you're seeing this. That he's really got a Jones about this. Like, I don't know what to tell you, Jerry Penna. Like, do you have if you have a link? If you have a link, share it. Right, just drop it right here. We can discuss it before we go. I don't care.
Yeah, Jerry, explain this to us, because I don't know what you said, and I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear the whole thing.
Right. So I try to be moderate. So Jay does these streams, for example, where he's. I don't know what I said, Jerry. So you'll have to play the clip, and then I'll tell you where I am about it.
I'm trying to find it, but I'm having internet connection problems again. What the fuck? Come on, workflowy. Come on. Yeah, can you post the clip or a link to the clip, because I'm having some problems with all my devices. All my devices belong to us. Something like that. All your devices.
I'm on my phone, but Pinecreek posted the clip. Did he just post it like yesterday, Jerry? I mean, is this new?
Yeah.
What's it called? Where can we find it? Because I can't respond to a clip that I'm not presented with, and I've said lots of stuff about lots of things. I don't know. Was it? Yeah. So I don't know. So while you guys are doing that, look, like I try to be fair to people. I do. And I try not to cross certain lines. And sometimes the lines are blurry, right? So like Jay will make a stream where he refers to Rebecca as the raggedy bitch, which I have mixed feelings about. On one hand, it's hilarious, and on the other hand, Rebecca, he just calls her the raggedy bitch now. And one part of me finds, yeah, he actually calls her that in the title of his streams. So part of me feels amused by that, and the other part of me feels cringe about it. Like, I'm not sure that's the direction we should be going in for the community. So I've like mixed feelings about it, right? Like, I don't know. It's not what I would say, but I get why he's saying it, right? Because there's a lot of people in our community that are so much an apologist for people, like that give respect where it shouldn't be, and give credence and weight and everything and kindness where we're just validating bad faith actors, right? We're taking abusers and treating them like they're not abusers because we're so determined to be nice. And Jay's like, well, why pretend abusers aren't abusers? Why not meet them on the terms where they're at? And so he's like, if she's going to be, this bad faith actor, why not call it out for what it is? And I get that, I do. But like Lena said, Lena has gone on with Jay on his channel to say, to make a call to say, to the community, to say maybe we could try to be a gentler community. Maybe we could try to be more pro-social instead of anti-social. Maybe we could like make a better, represent atheism or secularism in a more positive way. And Lena has good arguments for why we should. Jay has good arguments for why we shouldn't. Both have valid arguments. I'm caught in the middle, not sure about how I feel about it. And sometimes I get pulled one way and I'm too soft. And sometimes I get pulled the other way and I'm too hard. And I don't know. It's hard to know exactly where to land on certain things or exactly how charitable to be or to not be. But have I been hypercritical or very critical of Doug? Absolutely. I just don't think a whole lot about Doug unless someone brings him up.
Okay, Jerry, Oh, there it is. Okay, because I couldn't even fucking find the clip. I think Nitty posted it. I can't even find the clip on his channel. I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
Sure. Let's play that and see what I said.
Oh, is Pinecreek like Jeffrey Dahmer? Oh, this is rich. Ooh, should we start a big controversy here?
I mean, the controversy's already out there. Let's go ahead and hear it.
Okay, let's see. Let me. What we're doing. Oh, I know what I'm doing. Okay, here it is. Is Pinecreek like Jeffrey Dahmer? Oh, when emotion takes over the brain. Okay.
Let's
see.
Nobody's pointed this out yet. Pinecreek is a mass murderer. And
oh, yeah, I remember that.
How many lives have been destroyed and ended over his lifetime, over his voting lifetime, because of far-right conservative politics? The machine that he's been trying to help build and push forward, and the influence that he's had, not just at the voting booth, just one vote, but the influence that he's had everywhere that he's been able to wield influence.
Now
it's like the COVID thing. It's like the COVID thing.
But James, like, for like someone who, you know, I mean, or for a lot of us who deconstruct, and we're voting right, you know, out of, you know, the principle of our beliefs. Now,
sure.
Now you know my backstory that I don't vote,
I get that.
But you're also basically saying, right, a lot of people in my immediate community are de facto mass murderers, right?
I mean, there's so many.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty.
Wait,
good.
that's
So,
the whole clip? That's it? That's all he played?
Yeah, but I can see where you're coming from. You know, he has influence, and he's, you know, doing. But basically, okay, you're just a liberal commenting about, you know, like fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene. We could say the same thing. She's a fucking mass murderer. She's an asshole. So I don't know. Apparently, he was offended about that. That's pretty cool. I'm hoping that they mentioned your name in this, right?
Oh, I hope so. Like, I'll own that one. Absolutely. So here's the thing. There was a larger context in which that conversation sat. That where I was taking his logic and playing it back to show how it incriminates him to use the same logic he was using about liberals, right? And so that's the larger conversation that sat inside of. So do I literally think that he's equatable to someone like Dahmer? No. But if we follow his logic through going the other way, then yeah. Right. So no, but I don't literally think he's a mass murderer. I was using his logic against him. This is why that clip isn't big enough. Right. He took it. There's context missing there from the conversation that happened.
Oh, hashtag Pinecreek is a mass murderer. I love it. So
it's fun. I'm fine with it. It's fun. Like, and it's thought provoking, and you know, and it's again, I guess now I got to go back and ask Jay if he can find the whole conversation, because it was part of something bigger that puts it in context, right?
Calling him a mass murderer is just crazy, Danny says, right? But that isn't the way the conversation was rolling, right? It was like, okay, you could, you know, make this analogy or make this comparison, right? He wasn't actually saying he was a mass murderer in the fucking colloquial sense of a mass murderer, right? Jeffrey Dahmer wasn't a mass murderer. Actually, we could make a case that Jeffrey Dahmer wasn't even a mass murderer. He just murdered a few people. I mean, what the fuck? That's not mass. I'm sorry. If you want to be a mass murderer, you gotta get up there with Hitler and fucking Pol Pot.
Yeah, I mean, that's just semantics, anyways. I don't care about that. It is just semantics. So, you know, if you see the larger conversation where this happened in, and Mike's right, even in that clip, I explained that I don't mean it literally, personally. I don't mean that he personally went out and killed anybody. So we don't get to then say, oh, James, you unfairly accused Doug of going out personally and killing a whole bunch of people, right? Because I clarify, even in that clip, that that's not what I meant. But if you see the larger context of the conversation it sat in, then it gives a different understanding.
Right. Everyone who takes a walk in the park or the woods is a mass murderer. I'm sorry. If you know how many fucking creatures you were stomping on, you would feel fucking bad. You would want Jesus to forgive you.
Sure.
Anyway,
sure.
Yeah. So, well, that's pretty cool that Pinecreek noticed you. Wish he'd noticed me sometime. never does.
Yeah, I'm okay with it one way or the other. Yeah,
I was
for
on
whatever reason. Go ahead.
I was on a stream with him, and he was, and I was, showing my icon, and we were talking for a while, and he says, "You don't sound like you're 72 or old or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, what do I sound like?" And why is that pertinent? And he seemed like he was, like he was questioning me somehow. And then it ended shortly after. But I've only interacted with him once or twice, I think. And no interaction with him is the one I saw with Stephanie Helms is the one that really changed my mind about him. Before I thought he was just, one of these guys. There are a certain class of guys who I don't get along very well with because they're too pokey, and they're very outspoken and in your face, and they'll fucking call you to task on every fucking thing you say. Just so it's just a kind of personality. I know a couple of people on YouTube that are that way. But then when he added that conversation with Stephanie Helms, where he was clearly putting forth this underlying transphobic current that was going through his brain, right? And you could see it so fucking clearly, but he was pretending to be all rational about it. So anyway,
right.
I lowered my opinion of him considerably after that stream. So
Sure.
he could have been more. I don't know. He needed to shut the fuck up is what he needed to do.
Yeah, but and I don't take that personal. Like, there's a world full of people that probably should shut the fuck up, right? And I don't lose any sleep over it at all. But so somebody asked me the other day on my own stream, why don't you take these things more personal than you do? And I took the time to explain that these people were jacked up before they walked into the room with me, right? And that somebody else did that to them, and then they're making it my problem, or making your problem, or making it the problem of an entire demographic, or the problems of an entire world. But I don't take it personal because it's not about me, right? Like, so what? There's a billion people out there that have opinions that are unfortunate, right? I just don't care.
I think Lena cleared it up for us here. To be clear,
Yeah, Lena did. So to recap really quick, some of the context in that conversation was lost, and it's essential context, and so that made the clip dishonest. Do I take that personal? Nah, no, not at all. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, take the subs where you can get them.
Yeah, I mean, here's the ironic thing. Here I am thinking about turning my channel off, and here he is, like, generating, attention. Yeah, maybe I need to keep my channel on just because, hey, Jay says this all the time. It puts butts in seats. You need somebody out there getting people pissed off at you. If you really want to grow your channel with a topic, with a theme that has anything to do with controversies, you need sometimes to be part of the controversy if you're going to grow your channel. It's just how the game works, how the algorithm works. So I don't know. I'm still conflicted about it, which has nothing to do with Doug whatsoever.
Yep. So I have to get going here to arrange for our snowplow guy and a few other things, and try to fucking open my front door, which is like covered by a drift of snow. We got hammered. Holy shit. This sucks. I thought summer was coming, but it's not. Anyway.
There.
So shooter in the head there, James.
Yeah, that sounds fine, Mike. So, I'll go start a stream if nobody else is, and we'll just to talk randomly, and if somebody wants to jump over there. The videos, I set all my videos to private the other morning, and I'm going to edit them and re-upload them individually, as specific, probably shorts or something, because there's just way too much rambling, topics. Like, we start on one topic, we end up in another one, and then we end up in another one, and I kind of want to go back and like chop those into pieces and re-upload them as topic specific streams, because nobody's going to go back otherwise and watch 2 and 3 hour, 4 hour streams and wait for something that might have been worth hearing. There's just not going to do it, except my hate watchers maybe. But I even want to make their job easier, so I'm going to be doing that. So in the meantime, I'll start a stream.
Danny talked to Pinecreek about trans stuff.
But that's apparently, and I don't know how that conversation went. I don't follow.
Yeah, most of the conversations most of the conversations I have about that with individuals in my life, always it's like, what about the children? Oh, the children are being exposed to this stuff. It's like, well, the children are going to be so confused. It's like, relax, just fucking relax, people. The children are confused already anyway. All children are necessarily confused. That's what's really great about humans. We're born confused. It's not going to kill us. It's not going to kill your children to be a little confused about gender. So just fucking relax. Things are changing. Look to the wind. Look to the change. Shit gonna change over the next 20 years. Our culture is fucking changing, and it's okay. We're gonna be okay. Yeah. Oh,
wait. Do you want us, Danny? Do you want us to wait before we go, or if not, where would you rather share that at?
Yeah, I'd like you to share it, Danny. I'll throw it. Oh, I should throw this this Jeffrey Dahmer thing in the description, right?
Yeah, it's wonderful. I love it. And then Scott Duke says, when did I stop being confused? When do I stop being confused?
Yeah, when do you
But
stop?
James, like,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, when should we stop being confused? I'm still fucking confused about
Wait,
about what
whose
who
voice
I am.
was? Whose voice did I just hear?
Oh, that was Nitty. I just accidentally.
Oh, that was the part of that clip.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Nitty was there. You could ask him. There was a large. He might. Well, I don't know when he walked in. Maybe he didn't hear the larger context. I don't remember. It was what, months ago. So I don't. I'll have to go back and review the entire stream now. So
Right.
I just remember that there was a larger context where I was using Doug's own logic, playing it back to him. And this is a common thing, right? Where people will say that if you're a Democrat, for example, you're a baby killer because you support policies that enable abortions, which equals to killing babies, right? This is just that logic played the other way around, right?
Well,
you're go ahead.
In Pinecreek's defense, he probably posted this because he thought it was funny, or just
Probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm happy to provide humor, entertainment. You're welcome.
no evidence that he was offended, or anything.
I wouldn't care if he was or wasn't.
I'm sure he's been called worse. Yeah, I'm sure he's been called worse than a mass murderer. Does it get any worse?
He's been called Pinecreek.
Yeah, he's been called Pinecreek. Yeah. Oh, let's see. Oh, the New York Times. Feeding the hysteria, and it's repeated over and over again by people unwilling to go beyond the bullshit. Listen and read. Yep, I got some friends that have talked to me recently, and I'm just always kind of uncomfortable with. But I always try to reassure them, just changing. It's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. The kids are going to be okay. It's just like, fucking relax. Relax, people. I'm changing. I'm going to do some more changing this weekend.
Yeah, if you want to post a link here, Danny, we can jump into it before we go. If he's ready to, if you want to hear it, Mike.
Yeah, I will post a link. I have the link. You have the link. Well, give the link. It's like, yeah, I have some links too, and I'm not going to give them to you.
Says can't post it. Do they not have?
Why can't you post it?
Do they not have a
Well, Danny, why don't you email it to me, and I'll put it in the description, and we'll get to it next time, or email it to James, or go on to James. Where do I
post it? Where do I post it?
Oh, you don't have a fucking wrench, Danny? Oh my God. I gotta give Danny a wrench. What the hell, Danny? Let's see. Wait a minute. Okay, I gotta figure it. Okay, quit moving the chat, boys and girls, until I can fucking give Danny a wrench. Add as a standard moderator.
Ogre dropped my channel's link. Sure.
Oh, so Germania posted, but Danny, you got a wrench now.
No, Germania just posted the link directly to my channel, which all the videos are currently set to private anyways, but I probably am going to stream after this.
Okay. Oh, Danny posted a link. Finally, Danny.
Here we go. There's the link.
Way to go, Danny. Let's see if the link works.
Fleabeard. So, yeah, Fleabeard. Go ahead.
Okay, it's called Beauty Cells 2, Sex and Academics, Electric Cars, and Transgender View Shifting. Okay, it's pretty long. It's 3 hours and 47 minutes. We're going to need to home in a little more than that, right?
Yeah, we'll need something more specific than that.
Yeah, so where's the transgender stuff? I wonder if anybody's got it. Oh, beauty cells. Okay. So I think we have Sex and Academy. What the fuck what is that? Oh, let me see here. What the hell is this? Looks like lots of little gender pointy things. Little pointy penises. Pointy. They always do that arrow thing for men, a pointy penis. Inclusion of women in higher education. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I don't know, Danny. Oh, 302. Danny provided more info. I like that, Danny. Oh, zooming in, homing in. Here we go.
See you later, Kerr.
No, that's fine. No, I didn't, no problem at all. Are you burnt out on the trans issue?
Yeah, sort of, but we can talk about it. But did you hear what I said about you earlier?
No, I didn't.
My daughter's getting into philosophy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh dear. You know, because like it looks fun from up here in the sense that like on YouTube, you know, there's debates, theists versus atheism and not, but when you get deep into it, it becomes like math, more like math and history combined. You know, so I don't know.
Well, do you think you have the ability to teach it? Like my daughter's a 5-year-old, even though she's 19, and kind of like just here's like the five theories.
You know a lot in one branch of ethics.
They're better looking, and I want hair. Danny has lots of it. 2 capable people, one with hair and one with not. It leads.
High school student. So
yeah, and my daughter
her, but yeah. So this trans women aren't women thing. So what your position is that
are real women? I said
aren't real women. Sorry. To me, this is like saying that fathers that adopt are not real fathers.
It depends how you define father, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you go on around saying, oh well, fathers that adopt aren't real fathers, if you're that could cause a stir, because a lot of people invest a lot in being a father. They're not able to conceive with their spouse. And and then finally, you know, they decide to adopt, and then they're hearing, oh well, you're not a real father.
Who's this Danny guy? I really like him. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty smart.
But it's very clear the definitions you're using, then there's not a problem.
Well, okay, you're right. If you look at the logic of it, sure, but think about the average, that kind of scenario, that person's feelings are going to get hurt. And if I know you may not be interested or care about that, but I'm sensitive to that. Like I can imagine that father being like,
because you have more hair than me. That's why.
What?
That's why you're so sensitive. Men with a lot of testosterone lose their hair.
I'm sensitive to that. Now, if you're not, then that's kind of where a lot of people don't realize that there's a point where my values or my sensitivities are different than yours, and there's nothing more to debate. You know, like
what if take your father analogy? What if, I don't know, 65% of fathers who adopt admit they're not real fathers? Mm-hmm. Would that change anything?
Well, I think that the way I'm interpreting that question is that they admit that they're not biological fathers.
Right, but that's what real, but they not only do they understand the definition, but they're willing to admit this and say, and without giving any pushback, yeah, I'm not a real father, because a real father means a biological father. So yeah, I'm an adoptee father. Yeah. Because isn't this similar to with the transgender issue? Like, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think the majority of, and I wish I could be wrong about this, but I think the majority of transgender people will admit that they're not real men or women.
Okay, so that they're not biological female and male, maybe, but he wants to basically change the meaning of the word real. You know, not real fathers, right? So we're going to say that no adopted father, you know, like a father that takes over the parenting task when the baby is born is not a real father unless his sperm was the one that made her pregnant, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like what so and then he's saying, well, what if 90% of the fathers said that? Then wouldn't real be redefined now? So, no, using the word real is a little more general, And what Doug needs to do is change his language to be more specific and stop saying real woman instead of, you see what I mean? And like,
yeah, but he's using the word real to mean established, default, enduring, the real definition, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, but that's why the word real, when you like the word real is emotionally charged in a lot of different contexts. And we say,
Right.
oh, you're not a real Christian, you're not a real atheist, you're not a real
Right, so
this.
no trans person that I've ever even heard of is going to throw themselves under the semantic bus that way. They're not. They invalidate their own identity paradigm to humor like a traditional idea or usage of a word, right?
Right.
They're not going to play that game against themselves, not for any reason, for any person, no. So his idea that most of them, if you really asked them, would say this, none of them would. None of them.
Yeah. So he's just defending his use of the word real, which I think I have just established is an already loaded fucking word, because people use the word real with a capital R. Real just means biological, but that's not how people normally interpret it, right, Danny? So he's just defending his offensive language, basically. And it's like, and trying to rationally justify offensive language. Just stop using the fucking language. Change with the rest of us. Just fucking change. Anyway, biological fathers who walk out aren't real fathers. Yes. We could say, oh, they're not real fathers either, and you're just, so the word real is kind of weaponized, is my point. And Pinecreek is doubling down on his weaponization of the world, of the word.
Stephanie wants a piece of him now over this. Like, I could, like, we want to drop a link real quick for Stephanie where they can speak to it. Yeah. I mean, it's up to you.
I could drop a link, but goddamn, if this turns into a panel, I'm gonna have to fucking bow out for a while, guys.
This is just for Stephanie, everybody, and so
I'd like to have Danny on someday again too. But
well, if you want Stephanie and Danny and Lena or anybody else,
I don't want Danny today. I don't want anybody today, to tell you the truth.
Okay, well, we can shoot it in the head and come back at this later, or we can continue it. Oh, Maya, hey, how are you today?
Yeah, or maybe, hi, Maya, I sent you another Twitty thing. I sent you a Twitty message. Anyway, my Twitty message was, come on, Maya, if we're going to talk, we got to talk soon. I'm going to die soon. I mean, I'm old. Christ. Cancer's acting up. Fucking arthritis is acting up. I mean, damn it.
Does anybody want to start a stream then where
James, you wanted to start a stream, right? You could have Stephanie over and Danny and everybody and continue on.
Sure. So you guys tell me where you want to have that conversation if you do. It can be Stephanie's, Lena's, Maya's, Danny's, I don't care where. Just let me know. And then I'll jump over there and be supportive in chat. You probably don't, because I'm not trans, right? Like, I feel like if we're going to have a real pushback on what Doug is saying, and we've got all these trans people in our community, these wonderful, beautiful, awesome, amazing trans people whose identity, by the way, is 100% legitimate. We should be hearing from you, not me, about it, right? It's like, if we're going to talk about a women's issue, we don't need a man explaining women's issues, right? Like, we just have a woman on there if they're available. So
I can't email you, Maya, because I don't have your email. Like, I put my email in the twit. I did a twit on my email, and I was hoping you'd email me so that I have your email. So I'll put my email in the twit again, in the twit sphere, or the twit cloud, or the twit, whatever the fuck it is. The Twitter sphere. We'll call it the Twitter sphere. I don't like Twitter much. You might have guessed.
I like Maya's second comment too. You can't address shit with Doug. It's like addressing the shroud with Otangelo.
Oh, that's problematic. The Brazilian douche canoe. So, James, you can start a stream and maybe everybody will hop over there and you guys can sort this shit out and I'll be listening.
Well, nobody's offering to, so yeah, I'll host it. That's fine. Because I don't really care where that conversation happens. It can happen at my place. I don't care.
Anyway, Maya, I'll put my email in our twit messages, And please email me, and then we'll talk by email, which is the very best way to communicate, I think. So, and we'll try to set something up.
One last question. Does the Doug thing that's about me, does it have the link to the original stream so I can go back and grab the larger context for later? I hope it does.
Let's see.
Because I've been on so many of Jay's streams. There's no way I'm going to find it unless someone links me back to it. There's just too much to sort through.
He has no link. He does not have a link because that would
expose that he took it out of context.
Well, not only that, but he would never link to anybody else's stream because he's too much of a fucking narcissist.
Ray doesn't want to accidentally, even or on purpose, like, be cooperative and fair with other channels. He's too competitive for that.
Oh, it's on Pinecreek Politics. This thing. So I put that in my description, the Pinecreek thing, and I will put this other thing where he talks to Danny. I will put that in my description so that you guys can find it. Go to the description of this video, and you will be able to find your links.
Yeah.
Your links.
Yep. Appreciate you guys. All right, so give me a few minutes. I'll schedule a stream for like 5 or 6 minutes out, and then and if people want to jump in, we can.
Okay.
So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great nap, old man.
I'm not actually going to take a nap. I got a whole bunch of fucking work to do, and
gotcha.
I'm shampooing carpets and fucking chasing cats and shoveling snow and all kinds of shit. No nap today for me. Anyway, yeah, I'll be listening, and I think I just saved so everything's in the description, and you guys can sort all this shit out. Maya remembers naps. Yeah. Some of us have fond memory of sleeping.
Right.
I frequently say I've been up since 1969 because math. I discovered math in 1969. I've been up ever since.
Yeah.
Okay, shooting her in the head.
All right. Thanks.
Bye all. Love you all. Goodbye, cruel world.